You're listening to Podcast PXN,
a video game podcast
delivering player experience news.
Let's go!
What's up, guys? Welcome to Podcast PXN episode 206. I'm your neighbor host, Roshan Warner, aka Roro, and I am joined over Discord by Kentucky's number one Spartan, our fearless leader, Dan is DTM, aka Daniel Prindle.
Fearless leader. Whoa. I don't know about that.
That was a good one.
Thank you. I'm also joined by the Tarkov Teletubby himself, the DMZ daddy, Gage Dempster, aka Gilbo Biggins.
Leader, yes. Fearless, no. Full of shit, always.
Thank you, everyone watching us live and participating in the chat. Just as a reminder, we are live each and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube/PodcastPXN and Twitch.tv/PodcastPXN as well. Today, the topic of the show is Xbox Series S and the little debacle that they had themselves in with the feature parody and Baldur's Gate. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more in depth and our thoughts on it. But before we do that, start the show, as always, with the quick bites, starting with kind of a sad one. Rest in peace, Arlene Sorkin, who, if you didn't know, is one of the original voice of Harley Quinn from Batman the Animated Series, and she went on to voice the character in video games as well, so there's a little bit of, crossover here. In Arkham Asylum, she voiced the character. She passed away at the age of 67, I believe. I'm checking the article to make sure. Yes, at the age of 67. So yeah, we're losing a lot of legends this year, as last year as well. But yeah, quite a shame. But rest in peace to her, and thoughts with her family.
Absolutely.
Yes. Seconded.
Moving on to a little bit lighter news, or maybe larger news, I guess. That Spider-Man 2 is 98 gigabytes on PlayStation 5. It's a meaty boy. I just wanted to toss that out there because in comparison, the PS4 version was 45 gigabytes, so almost double the size for the PS5 sequel coming out. Not much to talk about here, unless you guys want to dive into a little bit more. But yeah, it's a beefy game, which excites me quite a bit.
All those gigabytes, and they couldn't figure out how to get the old face in there, huh?
Oh, God.
I guess not. Just a couple more gigabytes. You could swap
Just
about
a
it if we
couple more
want.
gigabytes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Shame. Moving on to our next story. Project Mugen revealed itself at Gamescom. It's a Cyberpunk meets Genshin Impact, but it also met our previous story, Spider-Man, as well. It kind of ripped off a little bit of the swinging animations from Spider-Man, but let me read the article here. An announcement trailer showed an anime-inspired art style and several playable characters traversing in a world with the movements and exploration bearing resemblance to the Insomniac-developed Spider-Man games. And bearing resemblance is putting it lightly. These animations are exactly the same as Insomniac Spider-Man. The only thing that's missing is web shooting out of these characters' arms, and I wouldn't be surprised if a character might be able to do that. As like an ability or something, but it looks really cool. I think that the game looks fun. It looks like my type of game, but it would be wrong of me not to mention that they just literally stole animations from Spider-Man.
Right.
True.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a discourse in our Twitter chat about what is a game full steal and
right.
But
I think where it comes down to me is that if you are using the finished animation of somebody else's game as a reference for your animation, that's where it gets into murky water, I think.
For
because
sure.
like you're saying, Ro, like a lot of these animations are like one for one. Very clearly they were probably not as deep and dark as them ripping files. That's obviously like a really there's usually only one way out of that scenario, and it's jail. So it's probably just them watching the animations and then using that as reference, which still is still, I think, is a little scummy. We saw that in Delta Force 2 as well. There's a lot of animations that look like it's ripped straight from Call of Duty. So it sucks because the core game concept could be really cool, but it seems like they're taking a lot of the hard parts that other people already did and then using that for their game. So not a huge fan of that trend.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a shame. This is a kind of a different, I guess, road to go down, but it reminds me of like how Nintendo and before them WB Games was patenting their systems and like trying like no one could touch this, and we were all mad about that, including myself, because I think that is just bad for the industry. Where you talked about artist collaborative earlier, but at the same time, you can't just go out stealing people's work at the same time without proper credit. Inspiration is one thing, and building upon ideas, but just like outright stealing is like, it's not a good look.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Glenn, I just want to point out, Glenn saying in the chat, Ro, do you mean chirpy leader?
Chirpy. Oh,
yeah.
Glenn? I don't know.
I think you could. I think chirpy or fearless. You can just spin the wheel.
Those are interchangeable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving into our next story, Xbox has hired Mena Sato Kato as director for partnerships in Japan, quote, responsible for leading partnerships worldwide for Japanese publishers at Xbox. Previously, she had an 8-year stint over at Sony Interactive Entertainment PlayStation Japan as well. So she has some experience with what she's going to be potentially doing at Xbox. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Seems like Daddy Phil wants to get more Japan market share again. So we'll see if he's successful. Yeah, I feel like he says this every 5 years.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean,
we'll does seem to be doing. I mean, I can't speak to the previous ones because I wasn't really paying that much attention, but it does seem like he's doing more to make that happen than previously.
I think pretty sure we talked about it on the podcast. It would have been, I think, either earlier this year or late last year, but I think this generation there has been a noticeable uptick in sales in Japan. So it definitely is working. So it's cool to see him double down on that and not just like, oh, we've got a measurable thing we can say, now let's just take our foot off the gas. It seems like he's actually committed to growing a fan base over there. So that's cool. You like to see that.
Also, Ro, I think Gage added a story. I'm assuming you added that, Gage? Or
I did not add that.
Oh, you did not add that. Oh.
I think that's the one I was thinking of.
Oh, okay.
But I did miss it. Yeah, I have another page open besides the doc that has like notes of what I'm going to say about each story.
Right.
I gotcha.
Right. So sometimes I don't look at the actual doc because I just copy over the stories. So I missed one. So thank you guys for reminding me about that.
Your doc is probably better than Dan's doc, anyways, if I had to guess. So
well, I missed a story, so maybe. But anyways, I did miss a story, and the story is a pretty cool one. Epic Games has revealed a new exclusivity program that allows developers to keep 100% of the profits from newly released games for 6 months after release in exchange for exclusivity, of course. So you have to be on their platform for 6 months, only theirs, and you get 100% of the profits from that 6 months.
I wonder if this applies to consoles. So, like, if the developer releases on Epic Games Store exclusively on PC and consoles, I wonder if that would count.
If they're still allowed to. Yeah, that's interesting. Either way, I feel like this is it kind of it doesn't bug me. It's upsetting that we're seeing this kind of upsetting isn't the right word. For me personally, I'd love to see Steam have this sort of policy. They probably will as a reactionary measure, but this is really pro developer stuff right here. Like this is,
I don't know. You think that they will do the 100% approach? Because like the whole reason they're doing this is to get people away from Steam. It's not like Steam
away from Steam.
Yeah. It's not like Steam has to like, compete for the mind share.
They don't have to compete for the market share, but I think they are going to want to compete in terms of optics. And I think that maybe we'll see Steam introduce something like this, but with a bit more of a, with the wording kind of steering things towards indie developers. Maybe we'll see that, because that to me, that's the biggest plus side to this, is that if you're an indie dev and you're somebody who's trying to make it, and a lot of these games, like with how much time you put in, it depends. Like if you're taking time off work, if you're just committing to this, like that could be a huge deal for somebody, is getting 100% of the profits for the first 6 months. So I'd like to see Steam. You're right, Dan. They don't need to do something like this in terms of the big guys, because Steam is the most stable launcher, and it's got it's been around the longest. It's got the most features and XYZ. So that it sells itself in terms of big publishers wanting to publish the games there. But I think for smaller devs, like this, definitely, I would be looking at this as something like, oh man, do I want to release exclusively on Epic Games? And in which case, all it takes is for one small game, like say like a Fall Guys, right, to get a lot of hype, and then suddenly everybody's running to that platform to try that game. So I think in terms of the indie angle, I think we could maybe see Steam do something reactionary here, but I agree with you. I don't think they need to do anything in terms of the big guys. I think they're already going to Steam anyways.
And if it is true, like as we may be assuming, or if they can still release on consoles with this 6 months thing, that's like a no-brainer for an indie developer.
Absolutely.
For sure. That would be awesome. But yeah, I agree. The big guys probably don't see this and like, oh, you gotta stay on just Epic Games for the first 6 months. They'll probably be losing money maybe.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Moving into our next story, you know who isn't losing money, or maybe they will be? PlayStation increase PlayStation Plus price. The premium tier has increased by $40 more, and I think the essential tier went up by $20. I'm not too sure, but let me just read it here. I lost it. Sorry. Sony has announced plans to raise the price of the PlayStation Plus 12-month subscriptions globally across all tiers. From September 6th, Sony will increase the price for 12 months for PlayStation Plus Essential, currently $59.99 US dollars, and it will now become $79.99 US dollars. The PlayStation Plus Extra is currently $99.99. It will now be $134.99. And the PlayStation Premium Plus is currently $119.99, and it will now be $159.99. In a post on the PlayStation blog, Sony issued a brief statement explaining the significant price hike by stating, "The price adjustment will enable us to continue bringing high-quality games and value-added benefits to your PlayStation Plus subscription." End quote. Well then, I don't buy it.
For any of our, literally, I don't buy it. For any of our fellow Canadian listeners, if you're curious what the new highest tier of PlayStation Plus is going to cost you in Canada, we're looking at $215 a year.
What the hell?
So that's definitely not worth it even a little bit.
That's crazy.
That's going to be a cancel. That's going to be a hard cancel for me. That's crazy.
I guess it just depends if they get PlayStation Plus in a state that's, you know, competitive to Game Pass Ultimate, because Game Pass Ultimate is $17 a month compared to this is $13.33 a month. Right. I guess it just depends on if they can get their stuff in a more competitive state. I think that they're getting better, but like still like I know Sony's not going to do this, or at least they've said they're not going to do this, put first-party games in there day one. But like, I feel like there's value there that they could add. Like, say, come out and say we're going to add our first-party games 1 year after launch. Something like
some sort of structure.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But I don't know.
I agree with you. Because that's exactly it. When you like, even you saying that like Game Pass is $17.99 a month, and absolutely, I think it's now they and it's important to note with Sony with this $215. A lot of the times they will round down for those kind of provinces, territories, or whatever countries where there is, just to kind of get a nice even number. So if I had to guess, instead of it being $214.99, it'll probably be $199 Canadian. Like they'll round down that little bit just to make it more palatable. But even you saying how much Game Pass is, like in my mind, it's like I didn't even shrug at all, because you do have so many benefits. You have not only the day one first party releases, which is a structure that you know is happening every time there's a new release, but you also have the guaranteed of, as of right now, the official wording is that, yeah, anything that is a first party game, it's not going anywhere. You have those games for the entirety that you have your subscription, right? So if Sony wants to start competing, I think you're right. They need to start for this amount of price. Like I do think for me, like it's going to take day one releases. I know Sony said they're not going to do that, but even some sort of verbiage where like you need some sort of clear rule of like, okay, like you said, a game that releases, a first party game that comes out, it'll be on the service X amount of months, X amount of years after. They need something, because this is an insane amount of it's now on par with Game Pass Ultimate, and in my mind, it doesn't have anywhere near close the same amount of benefits. Yeah, this is. It'll be interesting to see how this goes. Like Rose said, like this might end up costing them money. I think we'll see how the subscription numbers dip, but no bueno for me.
For the thing I that I feel like might be different about PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass, and there are a lot of differences, but this one in particular is you don't need Game Pass to play online, do you? That's like its own thing.
They bundle it together so that if I'm pretty sure they bundle it together though, don't they? Or no? Or
so you get to play online if you have Game Pass, but do you need Game Pass to play Halo online?
Well, no. Yes, no. But now they've combined Xbox Live with Game Pass's lowest tier. So the lowest tier gives you online gaming and those like whatever 20 games or whatever they announced a few weeks ago. So you get those two together now, as opposed to just Xbox Live being separate. However, free-to-play games like Halo Infinite, you don't need any of that. So if the game's free-to-play, you don't need anything. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, okay, the point I was trying to make is that you need PlayStation Plus to play Call of Duty online, right? You can't just play Call of Duty or like any other multiplayer game that isn't free-to-play.
Actually,
you need PlayStation Plus, right? Don't you?
For Call of Duty specifically, that's an interesting question because Warzone's free to play. Like it has a free to play component and a paid component. So I wonder if
you can play. So I have Modern Warfare 2 installed on my PlayStation, even though I didn't buy it. So yeah, you can play the free to play modes, but you can't touch multiplayer. You can't touch campaign. But on the Xbox side of things, Ro, like it's the same thing. Like you do need Xbox Live to play Call of Duty multiplayer, like the premium, like, or if you're to play like Gears of War multiplayer, anything that's not free to play, you do need Xbox Live for it.
I know you need Xbox Live, and what I'm trying to say is like, does PlayStation have an equivalent to Xbox Live that isn't tied to these subscription things? If you subscribe to PlayStation Plus, you get all these games. So what if I don't want all these games and I just want to play online? Xbox version.
Well, no
and
longer.
You don't have to pay as much, but no longer. So I guess they do the same thing.
Yeah.
But that's even more of an issue to me, I think. Is like, what if I just want to play this game that I bought online? Oh, I have to buy Game Pass, or I have to buy PlayStation Plus, as opposed to just like, I don't really want those things. Maybe.
Now, I guess in Xbox's situation, the price stayed the same. So a year of Xbox Live transitioned to this new Game Pass tier. That's the same price. So I guess you're not losing anything. You just gained some new games.
I guess that's better. Yeah. That's good.
But to Rose's point, if you're somebody who wasn't in the ecosystem and you just buy an Xbox, like there is that optics of like, well, what if I don't want these things, right? So it is unfortunate because it's one of those things that happens slowly over time where, to us it makes sense. Like, oh, okay, you used to be paying this amount of money just to access your multiplayer. Now you get Game Pass with it. That's a good deal. But somebody joining the ecosystem for the first time might be like, well, actually, I see the price here for Game Pass and Live. I don't want Game Pass. I just want Live. So that is unfortunate that there isn't a even more bare bones option, I guess. But there's a bit more of a nuance to that situation, I guess.
And apparently, in light of this, or to attach to this news, game subs have been decreasing since 2019. Apparently, according to Games Industry, they cite issues like or reasons such as holiday 2023 is getting competitive for the first time since 2019. The holiday window this year will be feature full stock of video game console hardware systems and library for new video games to play. So people are spending their money on these big first party games instead of re-ing up their subscriptions. Another issue was student loans are looming, which that impacts literally everything, not just gaming, but that is a big one. Portable PC market is also growing. The Steam Deck and the Asus ROG Ally have provided optimistic signals for what could become a significant PC portable hardware gaming marketplace. And famously, you don't need a subscription service to play online on PC. So these
famously,
yes. So these. I mean, I don't know if these things are going to impact us for much longer, but it is interesting that the subscriptions are going down and they're deciding to raise prices across the board. But we'll see.
Yeah.
which is the most corporation, like that's the most corporate way to do this, where it's like, oh, people are not subscribing to our service. Instead of making it better and trying to entice people, right, which is supposed to be how the free market works, instead we'll just raise prices for the people that have decided to stay. That is exactly, unfortunately, corporatism at its best, or worse, depending on what side you're at. Yeah.
Moving into our next PlayStation story, some good Sony news. Sony Interactive Entertainment filed some Astrobot trademarks on August 25th in Europe. So some hints that we may be getting another Astrobot game. I hope so. Astro's Playroom was dope.
Hopefully not a
It was.
VR game because nobody owns that.
Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully, they do Playroom 2 or something.
Yeah.
Or,
Next week
yeah.
we'll get a PlayStation VR price increase.
Oh no.
Oh boy. Moving into our next story, new live action Pokemon series without Pokemon. That's right. On October 19th, 2023, a live action drama will start to air on TV Tokyo about Pokemon. This series, Cram Adventures into a Pocket, is the name of it, is about Madoka Akagi, played by Nanase Nishihino, like we know who she is, we don't watch Japanese TV, who receives a copy of Pokemon Red from her mother after moving to Tokyo to work at an advertising company following her graduation. The series follows her as she dives into the world of Pokemon, but the video game, the actual video game, not the actual world of Pokemon. So it's a real life drama about this woman rekindling her love for Pokemon via her mother's gift. Sounds kind of wholesome. Weird that there's no Pokemon involved, but that could be cool.
So this is kind of like a Gran Turismo thing, where it's like in the universe, the like it's okay. I think I understand what this is.
Yeah, it's like Detective. Well, it's not like Detective Pikachu. It's live action like Detective Pikachu. It won't have any Pokemon, but it's like.
But Pokemon exists in the way that it exists in our world, in this universe.
Exactly.
That it's just a piece of media. It's a thing. Okay,
yeah.
Interesting.
Seems cool. I would be down for it. It's interesting that they're like, this is just so not Pokemon. Like, this is I don't feel like a kid is going to watch this. I feel like I'm going to watch this, and I don't feel like our age is that Pokemon's usual target demographic. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Which, yeah, this is interesting, right? It's kind of it seems like this is a show made for people that have grown up with Pokemon, and it's like maybe this show will rekindle some people's kind of interest in Pokemon, which is kind of cool. I think this is a neat idea. I like this.
Hopefully, we get a subbed version so I could watch it too. TV Tokyo, please. The next story is Sonic says pixel art is no good. Didn't exactly say that, but that was a Sonic meme. Anyways, Sonic team head pixel art won't be viable art style for Sonic games in 10 to 20 years. According to a report from Games Radar, Sonic team creative officer and producer Takashi Iizuka said at Gamescom that Sonic Superstars is an evolution of the 2D gameplay, but doesn't believe that 2D pixel art will survive as a video game art form for the franchise within the next 2 decades. This is Iizuka speaking, quote, "We look at the pixel art, it's great, but we think about 10 to 20 years in the future, we don't think it's going to be a viable art style or presentation for our players. And in order to advance and really step things up, we did want to make sure that we're presenting something that in 10 to 20 years down the road, we're still evolving, creating new content for it," end quote. Which is a bit of a shame for Sonic fans. They really liked Mania, which was a all pixel art style, and they're hoping to get a sequel or something similar to it in the future. But if his words are to believe, that's not going to happen. But it's interesting that he says that, because pixel art is definitely very popular in that genre. And the article even goes on to say that 2064 read-only memories, Dead Cells, Kaze and the Wind Mass, Freedom Planet, and a bunch of other games that take advantage of that art style are very popular, like Sea of Stars that just came out and Octopath Traveler 2. And I don't think Iizuka is saying that those games shouldn't be in pixel art. It's just that he's saying Sonic shouldn't be anymore. But I don't know. It kind of sucks, but pixel art is definitely a beautiful art style, I think.
I feel like that's kind of a product of them trying to focus too much on the mainstream audience. Like, obviously the mainstream audience isn't going to be as, excited about the pixel art graphics, I feel like. So, like, I don't know. I feel like Sega's just not quite realizing who their target demographic should be. Like they're just like, yeah, everyone should love this. It's like, well, I don't think everyone loves Sonic. Like you're not going to get some Joe Schmo off the street to come play Sonic. So
yeah. I just wish it's impossible that they're able to do everybody's needs.
Right.
I just wish they would do mine specifically.
But, or do both,
Do both, yeah, that would be nice. Sega apparently has given Sonic Team a little bit more of a bigger budget, so hopefully we can get more projects from them in the future. But if the creative officer is saying that they're not going to do it, we may not have it anytime soon. But maybe they'll change their mind in the future. Speaking of pixel art, Sea of Stars has a huge day one sales despite launching on Game Pass and PS Plus. And that headline is kind of the story. It sold over 100,000 copies of the game on launch day. Even though it's on PS Plus for free, it's on Game Pass for free, it still sold quite a lot. And it is quite a big number for a game of its size being an indie game. So congrats to Sea of Stars. It's getting amazing reviews. So they obviously did something right. But yeah. Good for them. Speaking of sales numbers, Nintendo Switch just passed the Wii's total sales in the US. The new data comes from Circana, formerly known as NPD, showing the strong growth of the US video game industry over the past year, especially in terms of hardware. According to Circana, Circana. I'm so used to NPD. That's very weird to see that word. The Switch not only exceeded the total US sales of the Wii in July 2023, but it also is catching up to other popular previous gen consoles. It's trailing the Xbox 360 by less than 1 million units and the PS2 by fewer than 5 million. So it's catching up to some of the big hitters on that list of best-selling hardware.
Killing it. See if they can keep the momentum going to their next console.
That's right, yeah. We shall be talking about some rumors soon. But before that, Nintendo of America announced that the Super Mario Bros. Wonder will be having a direct tomorrow. Of course, after the podcast at 10 a.m. Eastern, it's going to be roughly 15 minutes, and they'll take a deep dive into the new 2D side-scrolling adventure from Super Mario Bros. Very excited for this game.
Oh yeah. Crazy fall. So many
games. Oh my god. It's too much.
Yeah.
And our Street Meat story is also Nintendo related. Jez Corden heard some rumors. He says, heard some rumors recently that Nintendo maybe discussed the new Switch behind closed doors, select press /devs at Gamescom. Full reveal /leaks may be relatively imminent. It is extremely exciting. I'm so hyped for a new Nintendo console.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what kind of specs they can put out. Obviously, we talked about the handheld PC market a lot, and maybe that tech will see its way into the next Switch. Cool.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, like we were talking about how they might. We were talking about Steam and how on the PC side of things, like they kind of picked everything off, and now they're in a really good position to kind of wait and see what the competition's doing, and then come in and finalize and really put that final nail in the coffin. And I think Nintendo's in the same kind of position with, I mean, for console handhelds that run natively, they're kind of in a league of their own, but still they could be keeping an eye on the ROG Ally and stuff like that. And if they have a game if they have a console that has the IP and the catalog that Nintendo has, but with actual horsepower that is at least enough to raise eyebrows, and I think they'd be in a really good spot for the Switch too.
Definitely. Yeah, I hope they keep this train rolling. We just talked about how much the Switch has been selling, so they're in a good spot to just keep this going. Don't make any weird Nintendo decisions, please.
Just don't do any Nintendo things, please.
Yeah. Just keep this train rolling. You're doing so good.
You can't buy the Switch 2 outright. You can only have a subscription. You get to keep the Switch 2 as long as you have your active subscription. If you cancel your subscription, some Japanese men in black show up at your house and they take the Switch away. Sorry.
Damn it. God damn it. You have to memorize your friend code. like
a SIM card.
Yeah.
And if you lose
forget,
it, you don't get a new one.
Exactly.
They're gone forever.
We've made it to the PXN news of the week, and today we're going to be talking about Starfield and all the crazy stuff that's come out about it. It's coming tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to get reviews of the game. People have been playing it. Well, not everybody, as we'll talk about soon.
Tyrone's been playing it.
Tyrone has been playing it.
He's also actually gotten a little bit of trouble too. But, shut out.
Poor Tyrone. That's exactly who we're going to be talking about soon, right now, actually. If you don't know about Tyrone, I'm about to tell you about Tyrone. Starfield leaker has been arrested. The Starfield leaker was arrested last week, not for uploading 45 minutes of an unreleased game, but stealing 67 copies of it, according to the police report obtained by Polygon. Darren Harris, 29, was arrested days after uploading the footage and charged with felony theft. For theft, not leaking. Dozens of Starfield copies were stolen from the warehouse in Memphis, Tennessee, owned by Vantiva, a logistics company that handles the supply chain management and fulfillment. The 67 copies of the game are valued at $2,500, according to the incident report from the Memphis Police Department. The actual value is likely higher. If all copies were standard edition, the total retail value would be more of $4,600. Because the Starfield Collector's Edition sells for $299. After obtaining the game, Harris uploaded 45 minutes of footage on August. October has not come right. Where am I getting these words? After obtaining the game, Harris uploaded 45 minutes of footage on August 22nd, and the cell phone video of his screen quickly went viral, both for the nature of the footage and for the player's perceived life. Harris allegedly sold several copies of Starfield on e-commerce platform Mercari. You don't do that, Kotaku reported. He later posted videos himself shipping out copies of the game. Why would you commit a crime and then post yourself committing more
Film
crimes?
yourself doing the crime?
Yeah. But he didn't go out without a bang. He did a little TikTok review of the game, and quote, he said this, quote, "Todd, no offense, man, that's a good game," end quote. Now, if you don't put that on your box, you're doing something wrong, Mr. Todd Howard. That should be like in the accolades trailer when Starfield comes out. But what a story. My God.
Story.
Can you imagine stealing allegedly $4,600 worth of Starfield and thinking you're going to get away with it?
And then filming yourself doing it?
I just hope he didn't steal my collector's edition, because I want mine to show.
True. That's true. Did they say where this all happened? A local man in Kentucky. Uh-oh.
I think it's Memphis, a warehouse in Memphis, Tennessee, which isn't terribly far from me.
Oh no.
Oh.
That would suck. He's like, "Oh, we just got a little message in the mail. Dan, your collection has been delayed."
Yeah. Except I'll be on vacation, so I won't even know.
Oh.
I actually have
You'll
orders.
have to start the process once you get back from vacation.
Yeah. I have orders to my sister to come to my house on September 1st to make sure that box gets in my house. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I do. Yeah.
Well, you know who isn't playing Starfield? Eurogamer. Tom Phillips writes on Eurogamer's website a little transparent post to make sure that the readers know, full disclosure, that they will not be getting a review from Eurogamer come tomorrow. He writes, "No publisher is obligated to provide a copy of their game to us, but it is important that we are able to be transparent with you, our readers, about the delay this will have on Eurogamer's coverage. Let me start that part over. About the delay this will have on Eurogamer coverage you expect, especially as it has become clear that copies of the game are abandoned elsewhere, and in particular the US. Access to the game appears to have been heavily restricted in the UK, where Bethesda has not provided copies of Starfield to other websites and YouTube channels owned by Eurogamer parent company ReadPop. Meanwhile, some other UK outlets have been provided access through Bethesda's US arm. Throughout the past 2 weeks, since copies of the game were made available to the media, I've spent hours trying to discuss the issue with Bethesda, and the matter has been repeatedly flagged to both Bethesda and Microsoft at senior levels. But despite this, Digital Foundry, who was under the Eurogamer umbrella, received access. He writes about this as well, saying, lastly, on a note on Digital Foundry, you should expect to see relatively prompt coverage of the game by Rich and his team after a separate delivery of Starfield code was provided to them. However, this was provided alongside instruction to me by Bethesda that no other parts of Eurogamer were granted access. This was an unprecedented request, but one I ultimately felt compelled to honor to ensure the access granted to Digital Foundry was not subsequently impacted by any other mandate. So it's a weird one to me, but I don't know if there's something else that I may be missing, but it seems kind of like I don't know, it seems kind of unnecessary, especially this that they are giving copies to a lot of other places, even part of their own even part of Eurogamer's own company with Digital Foundry. But
Right.
like he said at the beginning, though, he's not obligated to it. But it does feel weird.
Yeah. I don't know anything about Eurogamer, but I do know that I've heard some theories that this is just has to do with the CMA and that it may be some sort of petty corporate nonsense of like I don't know. I when I first heard about places not getting review copies, the one I saw was Metro, and as much as it is definitely a slippery slope and probably shouldn't be encouraged for publishers to withhold review copies, there are certain, like the Metro review, obviously famously Hi-Fi Rush, which was super unprofessional, and I think almost a direct quote from that was like, we can't give Hi-Fi Rush the accolades due to Xbox's lackluster release schedule or something like that. That
Yes.
went viral, where it was very, very, very clearly unprofessional and not up to journalistic ethics or what those are supposed to be. So like I could see how if you get a review like that of somebody knocking a game release because of a lack of other games, that you might not want to give them review codes. But at the same time, it's a slippery slope. I don't know. It's not a good practice. This is one of those. It's kind of like the Activision Blizzard Microsoft thing, where it's like my ideal scenario would be that mega corporations don't acquire more mega corporations, but kind of between a rock and a hard place right now. So I don't know. I'm glad that Digital Foundry is getting one, and that's kind of a good sign that they are giving them that, because Digital Foundry is very much a bottom line hardware performance thing. So the fact that they're getting a copy is kind of a bit a good sign in my opinion. If they weren't getting one, I'd be like, oh, this game maybe isn't as bug free as Todd is claiming. But yeah, very, very interesting stuff. Dan, do you have any insight into this? Do you know what's going on with Eurogamer?
Not really, but I mean, in regards to, I think it is interesting that they did, after they released that article, they did give them a review code, ahead of time. So that was like the update that happened after they published that story.
Oh,
So that was interesting. But also, I did a quick search because I was curious as well, and apparently Bethesda has been known to reportedly blacklist outlets or individuals. The most famous example is when Kotaku reported inside information on where Fallout 4 would be set in Boston. And then as this recent Eurogamer issue came up, Jason Schreier, formerly of Kotaku, and now Bloomberg, said that he has been blacklisted by Bethesda for 13 years as a result. So maybe it's something like that they didn't like one of their reviews or something of one of their games, and now they blacklisted them. I don't know. It seems really petty. I think maybe took it a bit too much to heart, I guess. I don't know.
Well, and it sucks because it'll come back to bite them in the ass, where it's like you have a game like Starfield, which, all things considered, is starting to get really, really good hype, right? So stuff like this kind of, I think, just dampens the well a little bit, where it's not a good look to have stuff like this happening. So again, I could understand places like the Metro, where it's like, okay, this was objectively bad journalism. You knocked one of our games because of factors that have nothing to do with it. We're not giving you a code for our next one. Like, that's fine. But it seems like, and I know Dishonored 2 was a big hubbub as well. Like Bethesda they did not do things up to standard then too, with review codes as well. And that was one of the first ones that really got people's attention in the public sort of space. But I agree with you, Dan. It seems to be, my read on it is that it seems to be petty corporate knowledge.
Moving in to our next story here, some more Starfield drama. There was a little boundary reach drama on, I believe it was kind of confined to Twitter, as most drama is. Starfield is currently in the hands of reviewers, influencers, and some other players who have illegally obtained it. And while sharing any real details against terms set up by Bethesda's non-disclosure agreement, some tidbits have made it onto online. And one video of alleged leaked gameplay showed a player running in one direction for about 10 minutes before the boundary reach message appeared on screen. Quote, open the map to explore another region or return to your ship, it said, giving the player the option to fast travel to their ship, open the planet map, or close the message. Choosing to close the message would let the player continue for a few more steps before hitting an invisible wall to get halted. And apparently somebody responded and said, hey, what the heck? Didn't respond to this, but brought up a previous quote from Pete Hines saying that you can go wherever you want, walk on Brave Explorer, when asked by another Twitter user saying, when I land on a planet, will I be able to explore the entire planet? And like I said, he responded, yep, if you want, walk on Brave Explorer. But other game journalists and influencers who have also been playing the game say that this is a little bit misleading, saying that there's some half-truths in the footage and that if you close out the message that pops up and just reload in your ship or land in a different part, you could explore the area that was potentially blocked off by this message just by finding a workaround or reloading, I guess, the area.
Right.
So I guess only time will tell when we get the game in our hands, but it always sucks when the people making the game say one thing and then the game comes out and you can't do that one thing. So here's hoping that you can explore wherever you want to. Destiny had that famous issue as well.
Right. I think this is I don't think this is necessarily intentional misinformation on Pete Hines thing, because you got to think Pete Hines is the PR guy. He's the lead PR guy. So I could see this being one of those things where he doesn't know every single thing about the game. He knows that you can explore entire planets. He's probably played the game, and he's probably a normal person, which means he's landed on a planet and not walked in a straight line for 15 minutes straight.
Exactly.
And so from his perspective, he has been able to land on any planet he's want. He's been able to walk around and do whatever. So in his mind, it's like, yeah, you can. And
right.
For people who have played Minecraft, the way that I am understanding this, and that yes, maybe it should have been explained better, but not by Pete Hines. It's not necessarily his job to know exactly how every system in the game works, is that it seems like it uses a chunks kind of system where it's like, yes, the entire planet is explorable, but when you land on it, it loads a chunk based around where your ship lands. So if you would like to explore the next part of that thing, then yes, you can't just walk straight for 20 minutes, you know. And the other thing I'd like to point out to people, I mean, nobody's going to think of this because everybody just likes drama and likes to get all crazy about it, but in Fallout 4, if you were to walk for 15 minutes straight, that would be the entirety of the game. That's the entirety of the map. That's all you get. So the fact that you can land on 1,000 planets, and even if there was only one chunk per planet, you're still getting 1,000 times the playable space of what the previous Bethesda game was. That's the kind of kicker for me. So that little piece of logic is what turns this into like a complete non-issue for me, because even if there was only one landable outpost on each planet, and you could only walk 10 minutes in a squared direction, that would still be way more content than any Bethesda game that's ever released. But that's not the case. The case is that it is a chunk system that you can actually explore the entire planet. And as long as that planet is solid and you can actually walk on said planet.
And some of that
or Saturn, damn it.
Yeah. some of that information we've gotten as well, kind of leaked as well, that essentially landing on the planet at whatever space you land at, like you were alluding to, Gage, is literally every time you land is the size of Skyrim. So when you land, you get a explorable space the size of Skyrim, which is insane to me. and you can literally, if you want to keep going, like you said, go back to your ship and go to another section on the planet. You can still go wherever you want on the planet. It's just you can't walk. Like, who the fuck's gonna want to walk around an entire planet?
Nobody.
Like, what?
Right.
And the other thing is, shit. It just went out my brain. What was I just gonna say?
The other thing.
Yeah.
The other thing aside from chunks.
Yes. Shit. What was? Oh, sorry.
Oh.
So Todd was actually talking about this with someone. I can't remember what interview it was, but for instance, like the major settlements that you go to, there's going to be like, I think he said like 2 to 3 points that you can drop your ship at or whatever. And then there's, I think he said up to 6 that you can save for yourself. So essentially you have those ones that are made by them that you can always drop to whatever, that are always saved there. Then you can have like 6 more that you custom put wherever you want to save those points. Now you can always move those points. So like you can always, like we were talking about, go wherever you want, but you have those 6 saved points in case there's like cool points of interest that you want to go back to or whatever. So yeah,
so like you could have 6 outposts at one time on any given planet,
essentially. And yeah, like you said as well, Ro, like fucking people just need to wait for the game to come out. Like the games, we haven't even seen reviews, we haven't seen the game really at all, which will be believed tomorrow. But a lot of this I feel like is people with PlayStation in their profile. Yeah. And I'm just like, come on, people. Like,
that is definitely an issue as well. There's a lot of console war debate going on Twitter because of, I won't say because of Starfield, but because people have no life and decide to do that. The opposite is true too, though. I've noticed like a lot of people who are like, what's the game of the year? Is it going to be Starfield? And other games that have come out is like, wait a second.
Yes.
We haven't played Starfield.
Absolutely.
How could you even say that?
Starfield could be an absolute blunder. Like you have no idea. Right. Like that's the it's just funny that you bring it up as an example, Ro, because that's what gets me. And I have friends that do that. They're like, oh, do you think Spider-Man 2 or Starfield's gonna be game of the year? You don't know. I don't know. None of us know.
I hope so. Like for both of those games, I hope they're both fantastic. That we could have the discussion that either of those could possibly be game of the year, but I don't know yet.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Our last Starfield story here is Imagine Dragons makes its return to the video game industry. First it was Arcane, and now Starfield.
Christian.
Fly so high, children of the sky flying up so high. Woohoo.
Christian's crying
Is that
somewhere.
the actual melody of the song?
No.
You know what? Christian's crying somewhere, and y'all are a bunch of haters. I think it's fine.
Crying somewhere too.
I think it's fine.
It's fine.
And I'll
Listen,
be
here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say about Imagine Dragons. As someone who does not like Imagine Dragons even a little bit, I have watched the Arcane music video so many times just because that it features those characters.
It's so good.
It's so good.
just like Imagine Dragons. So good.
Nope.
I know we just talked about Starfield being Game of the Year possibility and how ridiculous it is to say that. But how are you guys feeling about it? Yeah. How are you guys feeling? Tomorrow the game is getting its reviews. Are you looking forward to the game, mixed, or you're not playing it? What do you guys think?
I think Dan and I are on the same page.
Oh,
hyped
on your minds?
We're very I'm very hyped. I'm extremely hyped. Dan, does it release tomorrow as well for early access, or what's the schedule like?
Yes, early access releases 8 p.m. our time tomorrow. So,
are you either guys have early access?
Well, that's funny you say that, bro. I'd love to fucking have my physical edition that has early access, but doesn't fucking ship until the 1st for whatever god awful reason. Fucking, and guess who's leaving on the 1st to go on vacation? Fuck.
God damn it.
I'm salty about it.
And in the natural way that the universe works, I made fun of Dan for doing this, and then I was reminded a few weeks ago that I'm going camping this weekend as well. So I will also not be able to play Starfield. So it's gonna be a long weekend for me. It's gonna be a long trip for Dan, but I'm excited to get back. And the real test will be: do I play a couple hours of it before and do that to myself, or do I try and? Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, I'm also looking forward to it. I don't know if I'm going to be playing it as soon as everyone else here, but I'm definitely looking forward to the reviews and just watching everybody playing it. It's like one of those big games that you get excited for, even though you're not playing. It's just excited to see how it all comes together.
Right, just to be in like the zeitgeist of the conversation. And
definitely. But before we get into our topic of the show, let's talk about our fantasy draft check-in. I think only Starfield, or not Starfield, Sea of Stars released, I think.
Yep.
That was the only one that came out. And it's at an 89. Last time I checked, it was higher, but it went down. So sad. So I got 19 points, I think.
Still respectful amount of points.
Hell yeah.
I wouldn't know what a respectable amount of points. I've never had that.
Well, Starfield, it's coming out for you soon. Florida Man Publishing Gage. That is going to be the first game that you actually drafted when we were doing this. So hopefully good reviews come out for it.
Yeah, I mean that could actually put you in the positive points, Gage.
Oh my god. Well, there's always next year.
There's always next year is becoming a yearly fucking theme.
Let's move into what you got for me, Daniel. What you got for me?
What do I have for you? My memory always fails me in this moment. What do I have? I know I have something new. Shit.
Should we come back to you?
Come back to me. Yes, my brain's not working today.
All right, Gage. I'm excited to hear what you got for me because you kind of teased me on Twitter that I would like what you got for me this week.
I did. I love teasing the homies. So, as people may remember, I bought a Game Boy Advance SP the other week, and I went down memory lane. I was playing some Pokemon Sapphire, having an absolute blast while doing it.
Yes.
It was nostalgic is absolutely a drug sometimes, because I was sitting there and I was getting like almost a high off of this. I was like, wow, I feel like I'm 10 years old again. But I was sitting there and I was weighing the value proposition of the money I had spent on it. I went back and I got myself a Nintendo Switch Lite. I have been playing Nintendo 1 Gauge Zero because I'm back, baby. I've been playing the absolute fuck out of Pokemon Shield, and holy fuck, it's so good.
Is it?
It's so good, bro.
Oh
I stand corrected. I stand here before you corrected. The game is so good, and I think it took me playing Pokemon Sapphire to sort of be able to jump back into it and realize how much is the same. And I think it's important to note too for people listening that Pokemon Sapphire and Nintendo Shield are the only Pokemon games that I've really played. So to me, it's kind of like it's the greatest sequel of all time because I didn't go through all those, incremental upgrades. I'm just going from one to the other. And man, I am having an absolute blast with it. I am hooked. I'm so hooked.
And it is Shield, right? It's not Scarlet and Violet, the most recent one. It's Shield.
It's Shield, okay. Yeah, because Glenn, friend of the show, he got the double pack and he took Sword for himself. He gave me Shield, which is fine. I think the Shield Wolf looks cooler.
I got Shield too.
Yeah, I'm in, man. The hooks are deep. The hooks are so deep. I am loving it. I'm grinding. I'm doing it like I'm playing it as if it's an RPG. And I actually caught myself the other day, and I was like, oh, I'm really into this. Like I'm not advancing the story. I'm going and grinding out my levels for my Pokemon and making sure I have like the right moves. I'm just totally into it. I'm totally hooked into it.
Yeah, Pokemon Shield is a great Pokemon game. I really liked it myself when I played it. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Hope you finish it.
Did you end up buying the Isle of Armor DLC?
I did not. I actually stopped when I finished it. I beat the game and then
left it.
Stayed around to grind a little bit more, catch a little bit more, but I didn't play any of the expansions. I think Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the upcoming DLC, is probably going to be the first time I ever dived into some Pokemon DLC. But yeah, I always do the post game stuff. Like sometimes there's stories that are only available and the Elite Four and all that kind of stuff. I do that
Okay.
after I beat the game, but then I usually just pop off after I do that. But yeah, Pokemon's awesome.
It's so good.
Dan, did you remember?
I did, yes, and it's not exciting at all. I was on a, I was
Halo
on a,
Infinite Season 6.
no. I was on a sports game kick last week at the end of the week, and so I booted up Madden 24. It's a 10-hour trial in Game Pass, so I didn't buy it, just to be clear. And yeah, that game somehow got worse. Somehow got worse than last year. I'm like, yeah, this is not fun. I'm not jiving with this at all.
Good thing it was a trial.
Yeah, exactly. The new passing system I don't like at all. It's just too much. There's too much going on. Yeah. The other thing I played was MLB The Show, which in contrast to that is as good as ever. I love it. It's so good, and it's a lot more fun having a team that's actually good this year, the Reds. Except they're struggling right now, but it's good. It's good to have a good team to play with, and yeah, having a lot of fun with that as well.
Speaking of nostalgia and sports games, I've been wanting to get back into like FIFA and NBA games, even though like with Madden, I feel like they've gotten worse over time.
FIFA,
in terms of,
I feel like FIFA's gotten better. Yeah,
maybe I'll try that because I know 2K has gotten worse with its gambling and all that kind of stuff. So maybe FIFA is where I start my sports resurgence.
Hell yeah,
yeah, revival, I guess. Yeah. But as you guessed it, everyone at home, I have not played anything new. I've been working on a new video for YouTube, but that's about it. But moving in to the topic of the show, Xbox Series S concerns, features, and frustration. We're starting off with the feature parody story. The Baldur's Gate 3 Xbox Series X fix means more compromises may come, is the headline from Paul Tassi over at Forbes. He writes, Microsoft has a growing problem with Xbox ecosystem, and one, it turns out, it may have to be a little bit flexible on. That would be this Xbox Series S, the less powerful, cheaper version of the Xbox Series X that serves as an entry point for the new generation of games, but without a higher price point. The feature parity is what he's talking about. This is good in theory, and it seems a good chunk of Microsoft new gen sales are the Xbox Series S, given the cost. But the more time goes on and the more power devs draw from the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, the idea that Microsoft demands feature parity. Oh my gosh, it's parity, parity, like with the I and a T. I thought it was parody, like
oh,
all this time. I'm so sorry. Feature parity from games on Series S is becoming a problem. This is all culminated in the Baldur's Gate 3 situation, in which Xbox lost a major third-party game to PC and PlayStation with a delayed launch just because of the Series S parity requirements. Larian said the feature that they were having an extremely hard time replicating was the local split-screen co-op for the game, which was present on other console versions. However, Microsoft and Larian eventually came to an understanding. The game would indeed release on Xbox system without that one feature. So that's the story so far. Recently, Xbox has come out to say that split-screen will is not exactly true. It's not confirmed yet, but Xbox says that they will work on trying to get split screen onto the Series S version. So if they could pull that off, that's another story. But they did agree with Larian. They're going to release the game on Series S, but without the feature for now.
Right.
Yeah, that is it's an interesting discussion. I think that yes, it's a very affordable console and a great entry point, but is it fair to those people to be getting the same game with less features, even though this is just one thing? Maybe not a lot of people would still an interesting conversation. Like, you're paying less, so maybe you get less. Is that fair?
I think that's what they need to do in terms of because like you can spend less money on a PlayStation Digital and you know what you're not getting, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like they do a clear job of advertising. This does not come with a disc tray. You are not able to play disc games, and in exchange for that, you're not paying a premium. You're gonna pay less. So I think Xbox should do something like the Series S. I think that it's interesting too, because if you pay attention to the tech specs, you kind of see exactly where the problem is. Because I'm 99% sure that the Series S and the Series X use the same processor. It's just different graphics card. They have different RDNA graphics. I could be wrong on that. Dan looks like he's double checking that for me, or no?
It's slightly different. So the Series S is slightly less powerful CPU wise than the Series X, which is different than the One S and One X, because the One S and One X had the same CPU.
Okay, maybe that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then in that case, yeah, it could be a combination of all the specs then, of like what they're using for graphics, what they're using for their processor. Yeah, I don't know. I think they need to either, if they want parity, they need to make sure that they are giving developers the tools they need to make sure that they can do that. Because it's one thing to say that you're going to give something to your consumers, but when in the hardware space, when developers are making things for your platform, you can't necessarily demand things of them. You're going to run into situations like this. If they don't have the tools necessary, if they don't have the resources necessary on your platform to make that possible. So I personally am okay with things not being one for one. I just think that they need to either, it seems like they're kind of walking this line and they have one foot on either direction, where they need to kind of just decide, do you want to have a cheaper, more accessible option? I think they should have that option, but I don't think they should demand that devs be able to, pull tricks out of their sleeves to make it happen. It's especially when you have all different, like we were talking about earlier with Epic Games, like there's all different kinds of publishers of all different sizes, of all different resources. So I think for the next generation, if they do want to have the cheaper option and the more expensive option, they need to really decide on what they want with that, because I think that parity is not working out, and we've seen it. This is only the most recent example, but it is far from the only example of games that have had this issue on the Series platform.
See, and I think they made the right call with the parity thing, because like you get into a tricky situation of like explaining to consumers that you're buying one version of a game, but on one platform it's something and on another it's something else. And you get in that tricky argument of like, are you paying for the same amount of money for less content or less features or whatever? And I go back to kind of what I said last week, that I feel like they made too many compromises on the Series S to hit that $299 price point. And like, even if it was $100 more, but I know we had this conversation as well. If you go $100 more, you're the same price as the PS5 digital edition, which is significantly more powerful. So it's like a tricky balance that they have to make, because I mean, it's not just the CPU. So the CPU is 0.2 gigahertz slower in the Series S. So it's not like super large or anything, but there's also there's like the compounding things, like the GPU is not as fast at processing, which you would think that would make sense because it's not supposed to render in 4K like the Series X is. It also only has 10 gigs of RAM versus 12 gigs in the Series X. It has a 128-bit memory bus compared to the Series X's 320, which is almost double. So, I mean, there's multiple things that they made compromises on that I feel like it kind of stacks up and essentially makes it a lot harder for developers to make this stuff. And especially for the memory route, like the memory bandwidth, even the memory bandwidth is literally half of the Series X speed wise. And when you're playing a split screen experience, you're having to render two different scenes at the same time. And if they're trying to load all of that content from memory at the same time, that's going to be very difficult to do, obviously. Yeah, it's because I really do like the Series S. I think the Series S is a great, like you were saying, Ro, it's a great form factor. It's a great price. It's just, if it's not powerful enough for developers to make the games they want to make for it, then I don't know if it necessarily has the value that it should have, even if that price point and size is good.
Yeah, it's almost like it should be like its own thing, like it's like it should be Xbox something else, like not in the same family as the Series X if it's going to be like limiting developers. It hasn't gone to that extreme yet, but it's possible that it could, I guess. Go ahead, go for it, Gage.
Funny that you saying that kind of sparked something. Now this is a much more extreme example, but what you could get into a scenario, and maybe what I say, like, Xbox needs to decide if they want to go the other route aside from console parity. Again, I know this is an extreme example, it wouldn't be this much of a difference, but it's kind of like when PlayStation had their console and they had the Vita, right? It was very clearly that you cannot play Uncharted 2 at full, you're not going to be able to play that on the Vita with the level of quality and blah blah, and some games don't come to Vita at all, and that's just the way that it works. I think that Xbox is in a unique opportunity to maybe for the next generation try something like that, where it's like, this is now Phil, you're going to need to work on your naming structure if you want to do that. That's the biggest problem with the Series S, and I think that's why they can't reverse course now, is that you can't, like Dan was saying, in terms of explaining things to the consumer, the waters are way too muddy with this generation already. Even hardcore gamers, like, I don't know a lot of people that are very much happy with those names. Like, I don't think anybody's like, yeah, you did a great job naming those consoles. So if people that are familiar with hardware and know how these things work aren't, super thrilled with the names, then obviously it's going to be super confusing for consumers. But if they wanted to still have that economic offer, which I agree totally with Dan, I think it's a great thing to offer that, especially not everybody comes from the same background, not everybody has the same access to amount of finances. Like, I think the Series S, the idea of the Series S is awesome, and I'm fully behind it. I just think that they really need to finalize their sort of order of operations on how they want to differentiate these two products, if they want to differentiate at all. Maybe next gen we won't see this at all. We'll see like more of a PS5 digital type thing from Xbox. But I hope that's not the case. I hope that they do continue to offer a cheaper one. I just hope that they really commit to it and kind of give an option to developers that doesn't have to be the exact same, because even you pointing out that the processor is slower, that makes sense from a company offering two models. You want the higher end one to have all the higher things, but if the Series S is designed to run at lower resolutions, you think it'd have a higher CPU, because it's more, when you're playing games at lower resolution, it's more CPU bound. So it seems like it's just a little bit all over the place. And for the next generation, I'd love to see them maybe take like a Vita approach to where games are clearly marked and branded on the game cases themselves, and kind of just fully commit that way, where you're not pulling the wool over the eyes of the consumer.
I have a crazy idea.
Uh-oh.
Crazy idea for next gen.
Let's hear it.
All right, here we go, Phil. So you have your premium console like the Series X, okay? Then you have your Series S like console, but it's a handheld, and you're able to play native handheld games that are made for that platform. But you can also use it for remote play to remotely access your Series X that you may have at home, or with xCloud if you don't have a Series X at home. And you could play literally every game you want. You could play the handheld games only, and you could also hit your Series X and play those games. I feel like
it could use your Series X as like the server that like runs the game and ships the data. Yeah, that's a really good idea. And if they made a dock for it, then that Series S handheld becomes your Series. Yeah, and that's a good idea, Dan. That's a really fucking good idea.
And the thing is also the remote play technology in terms of connecting to your home console at home, that actually works really well. I've used it on Halo Infinite a few times because I was curious of the latency, because xCloud's latency is still not in a good spot for me to use that at all. It's not viable, but it's actually viable. So like that could make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think we touched on this a little bit about Dev's opinion on the Series S, but Alex Donovan from the RPG site, he's the owner, he's also a video game critic, has the scoop as well. Got a bit of hand off the record comments from devs saying that they, quote, despise the Xbox Series S while developing for it, at least.
And that's the important distinction. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm glad you
yeah.
made that distinction, right? They're talking about it from their profession point of view,
Exactly.
not from a value to the consumer's point of view.
Yeah.
Yes. Xbox needs to think hard and fast about policies around making sure stuff runs on both machines, whatever they are, and consider the possibility of Series X exclusive features or even games. I fear the alternative is Sony hoovering. That's not hovering, right? That's hoovering. Hoovering up a de facto exclusives where, given the choice between dealing with the S or skipping X entirely, more devs choose the latter. You can force the issue if you have the market share to be unskippable, but Xbox is not and does not. It's a tough situation. The S is the best hardware value proposition on the market, hands down, but I also understand why some devs are frustrated. And yet, I think it shows a disconnect with a not insignificant section of the market who can't or don't want to pay for the Xbox Series X or PS5. So true. So true. But yeah.
It's clear that devs do not like this developing for it. So, and that's the problem. Not good.
The possibility, as you said, of devs just completely skipping the console is also not a good gate that they want to open. But another gate that they probably also don't want to open is a bunch of devs coming to them and asking them to waive their feature parity rule and just like put our game on it. But you could get rid of these things. It's okay. I really want to be on your console, but just get rid of these things, and then it becomes a whole thing where everybody is like, oh, I'm not getting the full thing on your console anymore, and just adds another wrinkle to the whole situation as well. So kind of a weird situation to be in for sure.
Right.
Where you don't want them to be unskippable, but you also want the games to come on your console with full features. But if they do that, you might not be able to have the game on your system because it just won't work on the Series S.
Yeah. I don't know what the solution is, honestly. At this point, we're stuck in this generation as it is, and the Series S is here, and the developers are gonna have to figure something out, I guess. This actually also brings up a great point in my mind as well, because I know a lot of people were upset about Halo Infinite not having campaign split screen co-op, or at least some, in my opinion, vocal minority, because I don't think that's a much used feature anymore like it used to be back in the day. But it does bring up an interesting question of like how many other developers have been struggling with this and don't release that feature because of the Series S. And, maybe in Halo Infinite's case also because we're fucking supporting the Xbox One from 2013.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, like you said, Dan, we're with these consoles for just a little while longer, but I hope in the future, the next generation, they pick up some of your ideas, your Engage's ideas, and make consoles a little bit more separate that have those affordable options, but also don't hold back the more powerful versions and games that come with them as well. So fingers crossed for the future.
Yes.
But if we have no other thoughts, I'm going to head and outro us out.
I have one thought.
No.
These guys are going to kill it the next 2 weeks without me. It's going to be great.
Yes, it's true. Dan is going to be on vacation for the next 2 episodes, so Christian, Gage, and I will be holding down the fort until he returns. Wish us luck.
Expect lots of policy changes here on PXN. Whole new format. Everything's going to be completely different.
This is going to be weird because this is the first episode I've missed since my mom's retirement party that I can't say anyone's name. Ro, you brought Christian on to do like a special episode for that week, and then Christian ended up joining us a few weeks later. So maybe I'll be replaced while I'm gone.
Maybe we'll invite Phil Spencer to the show.
Wow,
he just becomes the
new
host.
If you guys
you know what, the CEO shits too much. I'm just gonna do this podcast thing.
Damn.
Oh man. Well, we wish you a very fun vacation, Dan, and Christian, who wasn't able to join us, had a little bit of an emergency. I hope he gets that sorted out as soon as possible as well.
Agreed.
But Until next time, everyone, thank you again to everyone joining us live on YouTube and Twitch, as well as podcast services everywhere, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Gage. And Christian, wherever you are. Thank you. And until next time, later will be greater.
Much love. Keep on gaming.
See ya.